Moving along now, speaking on the aftermath of the announcement of the Gauteng budget speech, DA Premier candidate for Gauteng Solly Msimanga says the Finance MEC fell far short of their expectations. SABC News journalist Nozintombi Miya got his reaction post of the budget speech.
So much for joining us. We are joined by Mr. Solly Msimanga, the DA Premier candidate for the province of Gauteng, and Mr. Msimanga will give us his reactions to today's Gauteng finance speech by MEC of Finance, Mrs. Barbara Creasy. Thank you so much, Mr. Msimanga. 132 billion rand is the allocation for this term's budget. What were your overall thoughts around the MEC Creasy's budget?
Well, I feel for MEC Creasy. I think she had a huge, juggling act to do. This province here has had some serious financial issues. It's supposed to be on its way back to recovery. A number of municipalities that find themselves in trouble, financial trouble, Mfuleni, Merafong, West Rand, and we'll talk to that a little bit later.
Right.
What I found was that there seems to be a little bit of an opposing view between what the MEC was saying today versus what the Premier, David Makhura, had said in the State of the Province address. The Premier spoke about us, being at the forefront of ensuring that we have an infrastructure-led economy. But what we hear today is 85% of that going towards the social development side of things. We're not talking about infrastructure, investment.
Education and health received the lion's share. Education gets 49.8 billion rand, and health gets 50.8 billion rand. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, let's look at it. I mean, first of all, you have seen, us buying new laptops, new smart boards, new iPad tablets for learners in classrooms. How many schools have been targeted in the last month? A lot of schools now, because of all this infrastructure that we're now putting money into and buying, but no protection thereof. That is a serious problem. So we are now buying all these things that become so attractive to criminal elements, but we're not allocating any kind of funding to make sure that the infrastructure is actually protected while it's at school. I mean, we've had schools that have been robbed into, computers taken, laptops taken, and so on and so forth. So that is a problem that we're sitting with.
A financial allocation has been made towards the issue of procuring a new building for the back of Lisbon tragedy, and also allocation towards the livelihoods of many families who were affected by the tragedy. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's fine that we are now moving towards finalizing of this tragedy. But it's not good that people have been let off the hook. This was a decision that could have been prevented. People were told in this very same house in the last sitting of November that you are going to create problems. And that was again ignored. There was some big-headedness that took place here. And we are now seeing over 130 million that is going to now be paid out. Taxpayers who are going to pay, but the decision makers or those that took the decisions are just going to walk scot-free. In fact, some of them are going to get more into new positions and get promotions. And I don't think that is the best way of spending taxpayers' money.
Speaking of scot-free, the issue of transport and infrastructure, there was not a lot of mention around the issue of e-tolls.
Well, I'm not expecting them to mention the issue of e-tolls because they know that they've lied to the people of Gauteng and they continue to lie to the people of Gauteng.
How so?
What they're going to do is now march against themselves again. Instead of telling the people the truth, that as a matter of fact, the contract on the collection of the e-toll revenue has actually been extended to the end of 2019. And with that new extension, there's actually now even an option to renew towards 2020, 2021. So I'm saying to you, the issue of e-tolls are not going to be a thing that is going to be a thing of the past here in Gauteng. Less, the ANC is removed from government, then we are able to then get somebody who will be able to take this thing on review.
Mr. Msimanga, your final thoughts. We've spoken about quite a number of budget allocations to the different programs and different departments. But where do you think the MEC fell short?
How are we also now going to ensure that those that have been found with their hands in the cookie jar are going to be dealt with decisively? But here's one element that I found very, very concerning. The Premier's office has now received a very big chunk in terms of the increase of the budget. Is this money that is now going to go towards billboards to promote the ANC during the elections? We wait to see, and we'll hold them to account. We will make sure that they account for each and every cent. And if they spend any of that money towards the promotion of a political party, we'll take them head on.
On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Solly Msimanga, the DA's Premier candidate for Gauteng, giving us his thoughts and his assessment around today's Gauteng budget speech by MEC Barbara Creasy. Barbara Creasy is the MEC for Finance in Gauteng. With that, it's back to you in the studio.